Hello! Welcome back to Killer Score, the cult classic, the podcast known for covering cult classic films with phenomenal soundtracks and scores and their composers and everything about them and giving them a spotlight. I am, of course, your host, Daulton Morrison, and we are here for the second episode of Musical March.
Hooray for lateness! Sorry, guys.
You're all right.
So, as Daulton had implied last and this episode, this is his pick, and boy, does he have a doozy for the three of us.
I do. And once again, before we get super into it, I'm your host, Daulton Morrison. This podcast is my primary form of output, but I do have other projects that I've worked on and am working on. Look for me on as playing Killer Moth on the Rogues Gallery thing.
Yep, Mr. Rogues' YouTube channel, wherein he does an excellent job as Killer Moth.
Thank you.
In the Arkham Patient sessions.
And also on my channel and on my co-host Richie's, we did a comic dub of the fantastic Boom Studios Power Rangers Heart of the Dragon. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll do an entire cover of that. That would be fun.
Oh yeah, tough but fun.
Oh yeah.
Hi, Erin here from witchandcraftsnj.com, witchandcrafts.nj at Instagram, witchandcrafts TikTok, you know the spiel.
Oh, you should plug the convention.
Yes, I should. So, in Memorial Day weekend, this year, we will be at Thy Geekdom. I almost said Monster Mania, that was last year. Thy Geekdom Con at the Greater Philadelphia Expo Center at Oaks. We will be there all 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And you can stop by, say hello, maybe pick up a couple things. We will still have some Killer Score merch there.
Yeah, we'll still have some of the totes and pins and stickers. Erin and I will be there.
Yeah, that'll be a them affair because their old pal Richie's got some production stuff to catch up on. Wait, did I say some? I meant way too goddamn much.
We got a lot. We got a lot on our plates.
There's a lot going on.
Speaking of, Richie Eckert here, purveyor of Richie's rad voices and producer of a lot of comic dubs courtesy of Tantalus Productions. I have some audio dramas I'm working on with Daulton here and some other people I've dubbed comics with, including Benjamin Grace of Royal Flush Productions and Everwest. And that's pretty much it. I'm mainly working on those and also some voice demos coming out soon. Way too much on my plate, and not enough hours in the day, I will tell you that.
And I am currently still in the writing process of my first video essay, so check that out on YouTube once I get that up and running.
Yep.
Oh, right. And I forgot to mention, since he did, I'm also... Oh, if you want older yet still proud work of mine, go onto Mr. Rogues' channel under the Arkham Patient sessions and check me out as Two-Face in all 3 installments starring Harvey Dent.
Yep, and Richie and I are always looking for voice projects to work on, so if you got anything, you can hit us up.
We're always ready.
Yep. So, this one is a very interesting one to cover. I have wanted to do this film for a long time, actually. When I think of cult classic filmmakers, few spring to my mind quicker than my boy Takashi Miike. Miike. So, for those unaware, Miike is an absolute workhorse of a director. At the time of us covering this, Miike has currently over 100 directing credits across TV and film.
Oh, wow.
He's been working since like the 80s in film and various mediums. Miike comes from an unusual background for our viewers at first when I say this. Even for potentially you two, you might not be familiar with this. Have you heard of V Cinema?
No, actually.
Vaguely, maybe?
So,
Wikipedia binge at 2 in the morning?
V Cinema was the name given to the very popular, very prolific direct-to-video market of Japan.
Okay.
That's where Miike actually cut his teeth in, and he worked for a lot of V Cinema credits. Specifically, Miike has said that he never sought out to be a director. He sort of fell into it.
Huh. Interesting, considering the insane back catalog of his portfolio. When Daulton mentioned that he is a workhorse, he was not kidding. In preparation for this episode, I went and looked at his loose filmography on Wikipedia. He does at least 3 to 4 movies every year by my own estimation.
Yeah, and he pumps these things out quick. The production of Happiness of the Katakuris only took a few months.
Oh, wow.
Like, they started production early in 2001, and this released late in 2001.
That is insane, because I've worked on student films before, back when I was in high school and my small kick in college. Doing a feature-length film in that amount of time is basically unheard of.
Yeah, no, he did it in like 3 months.
I've taken months to do short subjects with people, let alone hearing about something of this length in that short a time frame. This was either the best or most messy production ever.
And Miike is a director I really admire because he never falls back on standard conventions. He never does the same thing a bunch of times.
Or genres. There are so many horror movies, crime thrillers, children's movies, and adaptations of video games and anime to this director's name.
Mm-hmm. And he says he does that to challenge himself. In his mind, and I think this is a very interesting thing he brought up that I feel like applies to this podcast very well, he doesn't like it. He doesn't like the idea of becoming a big hit director. Because in his mind, you're just going to stress yourself out afterwards with making sure you keep pumping out hits.
Which is a valid concern, especially with the capitalistic looming realities of the film industry hanging over everyone's head.
Yeah, this is one of his big studio films. He actually didn't really start working in big studios until like late 90s, early 2000s. And that's actually just because of the fact that despite Japanese critics genuinely not liking Miike's output, and audiences being fairly indifferent towards his output in Japan, he's well liked by the industry itself.
Horror buffs will most likely remember him for his psychological thriller masterpiece and potential candidate for this show, Audition.
Yeah. Audition and Ichi the Killer were like really big breakouts for him. He did this with Shochiko Studio. Specifically, the production was handled in their Kyoto offices. They filmed at various Japanese country locales. I forgot to write it down, but I believe they did some filming at in Karazawa and some other locations. There was not, they did not shoot anything in like Tokyo or your typical big Japanese cities for this.
Yeah, not like Tokyo or Osaka or anything like that.
Yeah, and even though they met where Miike himself is from, and he believes that's somewhat influenced his filmography, because even in his darkest films, there's humor. Even if it's not on the scenes, it's behind the scenes, which is part of the inspiration for this. He was talking with like some coworkers, and he noticed he made movies like Ichi and Audition, but the mood on set was always light, and they were always making jokes.
For context, Audition is not something any person would call light with a straight face. Fair warning, by the way, if we ever cover that movie, I hope you're not super freaked out by needles.
Yeah. And despite having directed all sorts of stuff, he realized, wait, I haven't seen a lot of Japanese musicals. You don't see them that much. And they started thinking about old musicals, old Hollywood, Golden Age kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And family pictures. And it got Miike thinking, well, why can't I make a musical comedy with plenty of violence in it?
Oxymoronic, maybe? But not something that is beyond the pale for a director like Miike, because I cannot stress enough how versatile he is.
Oh, yeah.
And how he is basically like if a Japanese Tex Avery made live action live action film.
What I was thinking about is, as you mentioned, the violent musical, you see that more on stage than you do in film.
Yeah.
Case in point, the Evil Dead musical,
Sweeney Todd, American Psycho, the musical.
Little Shop of Horrors to a lesser extent.
And, Miike is just a maverick and a showman as well. Initial screenings of Ichi came with barf bags.
Well, fittingly so, because that is a tough one.
Oh, yeah. It's all about the violent criminal underworld, specifically around the Kabukicho district.
Yeah, it's not Ryo Gagatoku / Yakuza, trust me.
No, it's very dark. His big inspirations are other maverick filmmakers and directors, specifically Akira Kurosawa, David Lynch, David Cronenberg, and Paul Verhoeven. Miike has actually cited Starship Troopers as his favorite film,
which very much tracks considering his penchant for social satire and copious amounts of gore.
And despite his success overseas, he's not that the most well-known to most people in Japan. As I said, the big reason he gets so much film work is he's easy to work with.
He's supposed to be one of the most chill guys ever, which is funny considering his sensibilities.
He has a big energy. He's very hands-on and direct with people. I watch behind-the-scenes footage. He's basically almost never sitting down. He's always up and moving around, like pointing around at different things.
Yeah.
Giving people very precise directions.
Very hands-on.
And it's funny because this is a guy whose films can get very dark. Specifically, Audition and Ichi the Killer are very violent, and Ichi has been banned in several countries. And the old show, Masters of Horror, I don't know if you've heard of that.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. Well, they got a bunch of groundbreaking directors to do their own episodes. It's like a Tales from the Crypt sort of thing.
Yeah.
His episode imprint was deemed too disturbing for broadcast, even with the more relaxed broadcast standards for the network it was on, because I think it was on like an HBO style.
The man has always been a magnet for controversy in the Japanese film scene.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
So what the other big thing that inspired this film was it's a sort of remake.
Huh.
Miike had seen The Quiet Family, which was a Korean drama from an up-and-coming Korean director. And it's a family drama about an unlucky family that becomes plagued by deaths at their bed and basket, and they attempt to... Bed and breakfast. Bed and breakfast.
Bed and basket.
Yeah, they attempt to cover...
Right,
yeah, so they attempt to cover up these deaths, and he found that to be darkly comedic and wanted to make his own take on it.
Does seem like something that Hitchcock would be a part of if he ever did comedies.
Mm-hmm. So, there's a lot of unique stuff about this film. It features a good amount of stop motion, which Miike did because he thought certain sequences couldn't be done in anything but stop motion in his mind. Choreography was handled by a very successful Japanese choreographer whose name I'm blanking on right now. I'll look it up, get back to you guys later. But he worked with Miike and the others, and specifically, they did not plan the choreography in advance.
So it was all improv?
No, not improv, but when they got to like shooting and rehearsing, the choreographer just worked with the actors to see what they wanted to do.
Oh.
And they sort of planned it out from there. Miike didn't want it to be polished because the Katakuris themselves are not a polished family, so why would the choreography of this film be very polished?
Shocker. This family struck me as very idyllic and laid back.
No. But yeah, they were very comfortable with him. He's a very energetic director. And they said what actually made the film take off was the signing on of the lead Kenji Sawada. Kenji Sawada is well known in the Japanese entertainment industry because he is an icon in the music industry over there.
Oh.
For his Japanese rock group, the Tigers. And when Kenji Sawada signed on, they said the rest of the production became super easy because
Everything
people,
fell into place.
people went, oh, Kenji Sawada's in, yeah, I'll show up. That sounds good. And Miike specifically brought in mostly people who had experience with music. Kenji Sawada said he loved making the film, and specifically the karaoke style number and scene is his absolute favorite. He said.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a big difference from when you see Western films try to make musicals with big name actors who are terrible singers, because they were like, I was a drummer in a band in high school, and the director's always like, cool, we can do that, and I'm like, Russell Crowe and Les Mis.
Case in point, our Moulin Rouge episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, so various cast members such as Kenji Sawada, Shinji Takeda, and Kiyoshiro Imawano all had music experience. Tetsuro Tamba, who plays the Grandpa Jinpei, was the most experienced actor among them, having even been in You Only Live Twice. The James Bond flick. And he also voice acted in The Cat Returns as the Cat King.
Great deep cut as far as Ghibli films are concerned. If you haven't, go watch The Cat Returns. English dub is a lot of fun because the title character has Cary Elwes doing his whole Dread Pirate Robert shtick as a cat.
Yeah, so it's hard to find any I couldn't find box office or reviews from Japan at the time. It's safe to say they weren't that good from what Miike implied.
Yeah.
And he said he doesn't really care about that anyways. I looked at the initial overseas reviews for it. They're very mixed.
Yeah, that's the thing with Miike. He's very much a film nerd's director, even in his home country.
Yeah, and this was made with the big Shochiku studio, which is actually known as one of the big 4 studios in Japan, specifically. Yeah, so it's one of the 4 big film studios in Japan. It's an obscure one, so I think it's safe to cover it for this. And it did, however, win a special jury prize for directing at a French film festival in 2004, oddly enough, several years after it came out.
Yes, the film festival is called Gérard Mer. It's a French film festival.
Yeah, it takes place around Paris.
Somewhere around Paris.
Because there's a region called that
in France, yeah. Chantal, if you're listening to this, please correct my pronunciation.
Yeah. But Kiyoshiro Imawano, who plays Richard, it was the most well-known in the music industry at the time. Specifically, he was in a really highly influential rock group called RC Succession. They've also done a lot. He also did a lot for environmentalist stuff, too.
That's cool.
Him and Tetsuro Tamba are sadly the only ones of the cast who are not alive anymore, which is a shame because Miike said he really wanted to do more with them.
Yeah.
Tamba died because he was pretty old at the time anyway, and so it was all natural, I believe. And Imawano had a disease that he died of. I think it was cancer.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So, the music of this. Miike recruited longtime collaborator Koji Endo, who worked with him on several other films of his, like 13 Assassins and Audition.
Oh,
wow.
And is a highly accomplished composer, has over 200 credits in the Japanese industry across various mediums.
So he's like Japanese Hans Zimmer, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Koji Makino, who also worked on it. Makino is mainly well known for Japanese pop music composing and arranging, along with his own Japanese pop music. But he'd also worked on live action stuff and the groundbreaking anime The Rose of Versailles.
Oh, wow.
Deep cut.
Yeah. So this one is a fun one. And Erin, you saw it once before with me, right?
Yeah, I watched it with you.
Mm-hmm. And Richie, this is your first time.
Yep, never have seen this before.
So, yeah. So let's start to get into this soon. But before we do, who wants to read off the film?
Richie's raising his hand.
All right.
Sorry. I figured it'd be fun to have the first timer do that. You know?
That makes sense.
From Takashi Miike, the prolific director of such shocking hits including Audition and Ichi the Killer, comes The Sound of Music meets Dawn of the Dead. The Katakuris are a family trying to run a peaceful country inn, but with a lack of guests, there is as much excitement for their first visitor, until they wind up dead. As each guest in turn dies in strange circumstances, the family agree to hide the bodies, but will the cover-ups come back to haunt them? Apologies for that. In Happiness of the Katakuris, scenes of grotesque motion animation, surreal musical numbers, and zombies combine to make one of the finest horror comedies ever made.
Yeah, and if you guys want to watch along with us, this is available for streaming on Tubi from what I could find. You might be able to find it on some other places online because you know how it is. Different regions have different streaming.
Who knows? Maybe
I highly suggest getting a VPN.
Yeah. And if you guys want a physical release, I want to shout out for this episode the amazing distributor Arrow Video. They do a lot of like schlocky and over the top Japanese films. Sailor Suit with Machine Gun, for example, they did a release of recently, which is a great Japanese schlock action flick. And they also have handled the later distributions of even some modern cult films and like domestic ones for us at least. They did the most recent releases of Donnie Darko.
Ooh.
Wow, nice.
So, yeah, before we get into it, that's what I was going to say. Do you guys have any thoughts before you go in?
I am both nervous and excited for this, as I often am when you bring psychedelic horror genre mashups into this, like with House and In the Mouth of Madness.
This would be my second time watching it, so I kind of know what to expect, but I'm really excited to see how Richie's going to react to this movie.
Yeah, and check it out beforehand if you want to watch along with us. Let us know in the comments your favorite musicals or some of your favorite musical numbers from other films or your favorite Miike movie. We will be back soon after our screening. Hi, welcome back. And we've just gotten back from our screening of The Happiness of the Katakuris. So, yeah, that was a bit of a trip as per usual. This was like my second time watching it. I had a bunch of fun this time as well. Just as wild the first well, not just as, but you know, still wild even on the second viewing, but that's Miike for you. So, yeah, what did you guys think?
Well, this is my second time watching the movie. It is insane. It's fun, it's weird, but not a bad movie. I still enjoy watching it.
You must pardon me, dear viewers, if my words are as scattershot as they are rambly. But as implied by he who has brought this film to our table, this movie is joyously insane, and in ways that are atypical even for Takashi Miike. My best way to describe this would be along the same lines of the back of the Blu-ray box, but imagine for a moment if you took The Sound of Music and dropped it in a blender with House, and then sprinkled in just the slightest hint of Miyazaki's trippier movies. The results would not capture a fifth of the madness that is The Happiness of the Katakuris, and that is a compliment. But I need to stop thinking that I will ever be able to predict the direction of any film that Daulton brings to the table ever again. I will always be wrong.
I mean, I like weird, abstract, kind of avant-garde movies.
And this certainly fits the bill.
Yeah. So, enough about that, though, before we dive in deep into, like, dissecting and talking about everything. What were some of the things you guys really liked about it?
For me, it would be the claymation and the cinematography. I also really enjoyed the karaoke love song scene because that was funny.
Yeah.
I love that, and I love the big giant love song musical number with probably the most elaborate and precise choreography of the whole movie, because it's the only one with a big group dance number and a whole bunch of extras in the back of this resort by the looks of it.
Yeah, no, that's a really fun number. If I had to pick a favorite musical number, it's either that or the karaoke scene. Love that one, as I said.
I just didn't want to pick that one automatically because that's kind of the easy one.
That's fair.
That was fun, though, and I remember turning to Daulton in the middle of that and saying, this is basically something that you would sing in the karaoke mini games for Yakuza.
Yeah, they did a really good job of making it sound like a traditional Japanese, like, pop love song you would hear on the radio.
Kind of like city pop, kind of like the stuff that the lady...
Not really.
I wouldn't consider it city pop. I'd consider it more of, like, a traditional pop ballad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My thoughts are all over the place because of... Yeah, this movie will do that to you. This movie will do that.
Yeah, it's not. It wasn't clean and like synthy enough to be like
city pop.
City pop. Yeah.
Whoops.
So in my opinion, this is a bit of an underrated and a bit of like an uncovered gem in the Miike filmography, because everyone talks about Ichi the Killer, everyone talks about
Audition,
Dead or Alive, or his adaptations of stuff like Yatterman and Ace Attorney.
Yeah, both of which are of fluctuating qualities.
Yeah, people really seem to like his Ace Attorney live action adaptation.
Yeah, biggest problem with the Yatterman adaptation is that it's all over the goddamn place in a way that isn't good for Miike. It's torn between being that gonzo 60s cartoon, like the just off the wall comedy, and being semi-serious, which you don't do that for a Time Bokon series. You don't go there for serious drama.
I guess.
Or apocalyptic scenarios.
Yeah. Well, you know, Miike always, like, even when he makes, like, family films, he likes to throw in stuff for an adult audience and stuff, you know?
That's true. Maybe it's just because I'm too used to the show and its pretty good 2008 reboot.
Yeah. So, this one, I think, also benefits a lot, not just from the cinematography, but for the location shooting.
Oh, yeah.
Choosing Karizawa and a couple other locales for your shooting was a really good idea for the scenic area.
Yeah, that big open field and that little bed and breakfast in the middle of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Daulton and I watched Terrace House back when it was running, and they did a season in Karizawa, which... It's a mountain resort kind of area. A lot of skiing, a lot of winter sports, a lot of resort type area.
The Aspen of Japan.
That's what Daulton calls it. He calls it the Aspen of Japan.
Which is fair. I mean, Aspen is like the big ski resort town, which is why I called it the Aspen of Japan.
Yeah. I have no commentary on that because I know no shit about geography. But I really appreciate more than anything else about this movie its gonzo, do anything that makes the narrative flow spirit. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't matter if something is practical or fits tonally with the rest of the film. If it moves it along, it'll utilize that. And I think that is especially encapsulated by the claymation sequences.
Yeah.
Anytime there is an action scene or something that requires more than someone just being pushed over or something.
Or like anything that would require a massive budget.
They switch to claymation.
Yeah, which, in all honesty, claymation is not cheap.
No, but if you're using
if you're using it in short bursts, it is cheaper than trying to get an entire special effects department.
Yeah.
That animation is pretty good too, and it makes good use of stylistic cheapness where it matters.
Yeah.
Like with,
The cutting in and out.
Yeah, the cutting in and out of the style. Like, if a character has to get too expressive, they just kind of Photoshop
Put a clay head
in.
on them, yeah.
No. They put the human superimposed head on
the
the model.
Yeah. It's a very interesting stylistic choice. I also kind of like, and I say this in a nice way, I like how ugly the claymation models look.
It's to its benefit for making that really surreal, that surreal horror comedy styling work.
Yeah. Miike is a master of the craft, and even in a movie that's as fractured and helter-skelter as this, you can see what he's going for. And everyone sells it. Everyone's really good in this.
Everyone's so into it, too. You can tell that, there's a certain atmosphere to the performances and the chemistry between the cast that makes you think that once Miike went cut, everyone just burst out laughing, or we're just leaving the set with smiles on their faces.
It makes them really feel like, and I'm going to say the most cliched thing ever, and you guys are going to hit me for this, it makes you really think that they're a family.
I'll put a GIF up to indicate the fact that Erin just, in fact, flicked Daulton on the head.
You chowed ahead.
But, no, you're right.
Yeah.
It feels really natural. I think that my personal favorite performances among the cast, which is saying something because everyone does so well.
Oh, everyone puts in a great performance.
Everyone's on fire.
Everyone's on fire, but there are three I like in particular. The grandpa?
Mm-hmm.
The hopeless romantic
daughter?
Shizue, yeah.
Shizue, and the little girl.
Yeah.
Yurie,
yeah.
I love Yurie just because she has the I know she was probably maybe 4 or 5 years old.
Probably, yeah.
Like 4 at the oldest when they did this, and she was like, and she just has a look on her face of like, what am I doing here?
Mm-hmm.
And it's adorable.
She has a sort of semi Charlie Brown energy to her, where the jokes kind of like Peanuts, where the humor comes in from this little girl being the most stone-faced, deadpan actor in the room.
Yeah, and I just want to say, we are sorry if we haven't, given you a lot of information on this movie or, really dug in deep to it, but this is a film that kind of has to be experienced.
It has to sneak up on you.
It's a movie where I can sell how crazy it is for you, but if I do that, it's going to take away some of the energy from it.
Right. So.
My chair was squeaking. That's what I was trying to sign.
Oh, all of them were.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all are.
They happen. Please donate to our Ko-fi page for soft, less squeaky chairs.
Or become a patron on our Patreon. Do not forget to plug the Patreon.
Yes, we
please. Yes. We need Patreon.
We do.
We need the money.
Do you guys want us to torture ourselves with a cross-country road trip visiting every single location of Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville?
Now you can on Patreon.
Do it. Do it now.
Do it, because I need an excuse for a vacation.
And if you don't do it, then
redacted.
There's a put up a picture of a cute animal, Richie, and then something good is not gonna happen to that cute animal if you don't subscribe to the Patreon.
No, Richie, just post the National Lampoon photo.
I know the one. Speaking of not good things happening, something not good's gonna happen to you thanks to that bullshit back there.
What? Am I not supposed to laugh? Am I not supposed to experience joy?
You can laugh without peeking it. Oh God, I'm the peaker.
Shut up, Richie.
I'm the peaker.
Never say that again.
I'm the guy who peaked it.
Rich Eckert is the peaker.
That sounds like an innuendo, and I don't like the sound of it.
The happiness of the Katakuris.
One man has a mission to be the best peaker that he can.
Katakuris.
Oh,
Why
sorry.
did you put it
Why
towards
do you
her
put it
when
to-
she was sniffing?
See, I was hoping she would be the one to bring it back, but then she sniffed right as that
Right
happened.
into the microphone.
Right
You
into
put it towards her as you saw she was about to sniff. What were you
I
doing,
gotta
my dude?
sniffle sometimes. It's cold in here.
I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying,
that was
what's
me.
he doing?
Sucking at my job. Anyway, every musical number is great, and I gotta give some props to every element that went into it, from the compositions to the choreography to the fact that they're able to fit a lot of different musical styles and genres into it.
Yeah. Ryohei Kondo did a great job of working with the actors to get that choreography to feel like just unpolished enough that it fits the style of the movie, but not unpolished enough that it doesn't work for a musical.
And like I said, everything feels kind of like diverging and scattershot, but in a way that is in its own way fairly cohesive. You feel like the cast and the crew were committed to a very throw shit at the wall and see what sticks sort of tone. And the lunacy and the out of left field nature of half of these musical numbers is to this film's benefit.
Oh, yeah. So,
Apologies.
I have to ask you guys, each of you, what's your favorite performance in the movie? Like, who do you think put in the best performance? Or just your personal favorite?
That's a tough one.
Can I say Pochi the dog?
I suppose.
Okay. I like dogs.
I was gonna say that was the most Erin answer ever, but I'm not. He's a runner-up for me. He's so good. Pochi is a hero in his own right.
Even his terrifying claymation model.
I was gonna
my
say,
God.
remember when I said that there are some intentionally cheap and sucky animation in places? Pochi.
When I look at his model, I'm like, are those real teeth? Because they were like human teeth.
It looked like human teeth in a dog's mouth, and I did not like it.
Yeah, it's not great.
It looked like one of those dog claymation monsters you'd see in a Henry Selick short or something.
For me personally, it's a tough pick, but I really, really enjoy Kenji Sawada. Just being the frustrated patriarch of the Katakuri family just really ties the whole film together. He's the one who kicks off the plot. He's the one who makes all the major decisions that get the plot and the ball rolling. And you can just feel his frustration and exasperation and almost begrudging love for his family.
Yeah, I would say my favorite character besides the dog, my favorite human character, if you want to get specific, would be Great Grandpa. Would be the Great Grandpa.
I love his performance in this because of his pure exasperation with everything.
Yeah.
Just every time.
I'm too old for this shit mentality.
Yeah, every time something happens, and I won't get specific.
He kills his performance of your typical angry old grandpa.
Yeah.
Like throwing logs at crows.
Like, no joke. That's not even a spoiler. It happened so early that
first 5 minutes of the movie.
First 5 minutes. Like, I even looked at Daulton at some point when the movie started proper, and I'm like, we're not even 2 minutes in, man.
Yeah. And, as the most experienced actor on the cast at the time, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's in for. It's hilarious whenever he's involved in one of the musical numbers because Miike was right. He is not a good singer, like, at all.
Yeah, it's very grandpop at karaoke type deals.
But it makes it funny.
Yeah, because he's, like, not even, like, singing his lines with, like, passion or, like, charisma or anything. He's just kind of yelling the songs and stuff.
It's kind of like a Japanese William Shatner.
Yeah, he's just kind of yelling in all the musical numbers, and not even, like, rhythmically.
Just kind of shouting at the wind.
No. I got that wrong. Japanese Hugh Lofting.
Either way, he's fantastic. Everyone puts in a great performance.
For my own sensibilities, my favorite performance was, I hope I'm saying this right, from Kiyoshiro Imawano, the one who played Richard Sagawa.
Yeah. Richard, yeah.
Are you saying that because your name is Richard?
No, I'm saying that because he was hilarious, and the transparent con artist vibes are a comedic highlight of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
One comedy trope that's always great, it seems to never go wrong, it's always funny, is transparently terrible and bad con artists that people still somehow fall for.
Yeah, like, his con in this movie is so contradictory, transparent, and dumb that it actually somehow works until the very end.
It works until someone with half a lick of sense comes across it.
Because the best way I can put it is when you hear a lie that sounds so ridiculous it has to be true, people are going to believe it.
Yeah, but this man's lies are so bad that he outright contradicts himself with the next sentence.
Yeah, 2 sentences.
Not even. I'm with the U.S. Navy, or should I say the Royal
Air Force.
Yeah, the Royal British Navy. And it's like, dude, you just got 2 completely different continents.
And he even tries and fails to put on the accent of a foreigner trying to do Japanese.
But he sounds like an American trying to do Japanese when he's trying to sound like a British guy
doing Japanese.
And I think my favorite part of all that is when he's like, I'm in the Air Force, I'm flying over Iraq right now.
And he's just in a hotel room with, like, a boombox and, like, sound effect stuff.
And it sounds like Saving Private Ryan in the background.
Yeah, and you can hear people yelling despite the fact that he's on a plane.
Yeah.
None of it makes sense. She somehow buys it.
Like, I also picked his performance as my favorite because he also has my favorite musical number.
That's fair.
Like I said, the whole
both of his musical numbers are great.
Both of them are. But the love song one in particular is one where that transparent con man charm takes song form.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of cheesy overlay effects and blue screen.
But I think we're all glossing over another beautiful piece, which is the big triumphant, everything's gonna be all right, happy, like, musical number that ties everything together.
Yeah.
That one's great. It sounds
amazing.
Just like a cheesy old musical, you know.
Just like, as alluded to in the beginning, Golden Age musical.
Yeah, and The Sound of Music. They're even in, like, a Sound of Music looking field.
Yeah. Same field, same choreography, same...
They're prancing. They're literally prancing.
Same energy, same goofy-ass grins.
Oh, yeah. There's just so much to talk about. The lighting's great. They know when to switch up the lighting from naturalistic to obvious studio lighting to day for night, and it never feels bad.
Yeah, it never feels jarring.
Yeah, because if there's one field I feel like has really suffered in film in the last 20 years, it's been lighting.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, lighting and sound design.
Yeah, lighting and sound design have gotten so bad in the last 20 years in films.
So homogenous, too.
And loud.
And the mixing. My God, the mixing.
Oh, do not even get me started on modern action film sound mixing.
Not even just action films. It's like film in general. I don't know what it is. It seems like outside of like the horror space, no one knows how to do proper sound design anymore.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking about like the Marvel and DC movies with the god-awful sound design.
Mm-hmm.
And even when we were watching My Neighbor Totoro in theaters yesterday, the booming sound of John Wick that was in the theater next door.
To be fair, we were next to an IMAX theater.
Yeah.
Fair. But
Fair enough.
Those are always overkill.
But yeah, something that surprised me too. I know this was billed as a horror comedy in some ways, but I was really surprised that I was laughing and kind of uneased at multiple points throughout the movie.
That means
Like-
it's doing its job. Means it's doing its job, you know?
Yeah, like I'm impressed by it is what I'm saying, especially
Oh, I can't
like
blame you.
the lighting inside the guest room.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Like blue tint that they were doing?
The blue tint. I
Yeah.
won't allude to what it's used to frame, but it is it's chilling.
I also just appreciate the amount of comedic bait and switches this movie has.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Remember when I said that I would never ever predict a movie that Daulton brings to the table? This is why.
Yeah, like the one of the very first things we see in the movie is an eclipse, and you think, okay, this is going to factor into the plot. This is going to be really important. Nah,
No, it just freaks out the people on the spiritual expedition.
and they just kind of show up every once in a while, and you think, oh, they're going to tie into this film somehow. They're going to be a big part. They're going to come into a very pivotal moment in the movie. No.
No.
There's one moment in particular in the middle of the movie where not only were we, the audience, prepared for something bad to happen, the family was prepared for it, and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I'm being intentionally vague.
Yeah, even the family themselves just have this look of like, oh, well, nothing happened.
Yeah, they're just a look of utter confusion.
The
and
grandpa
kind
in
of
particular is
annoyance.
just like,
Oh, hey, there's the thing. And he's like, oh. Just so dead inside. They're just so numb to everything at this point. And it's amazing.
I'm just thinking about how much therapy that kid's gonna need.
that poor 4-year-old.
That girl, I love her performance too, because it comes across as like already aware of how much of a wreck her family is. And
That one
wise
line.
behind her years.
That one line that she has in one of the flashbacks.
Or when she just but she still feels like enough of a kid, like the whole bit in the beginning when she goes, and I know because of my family I'm going to grow up to be really cool.
You know what it reminds me of? Harkening back to one of our older episodes on Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai, kind of had the same energy as Pearline, who was just enough of a kid, but also deeply, like, blunt.
Yeah.
And to go back to audio briefly, PCM uncompressed sound is amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
We normally, doesn't matter what the age is, doesn't matter how old the movie is, this or that, there's almost always a moment in our screenings where we have to raise or lower the volume. Never did it once during this entire screening.
I just noticed that, too. That,
Yeah.
like, I wasn't even thinking about that, but then the second you brought it up, like, no, we didn't press that button.
Hot take, Dolby Digital is a scourge on the modern landscape because no one knows how to use it.
Pop off,
Yeah.
my brother.
Just thank you, Thomas Dolby, for revolutionizing sound design and also, weirdly, ringtone technology.
Those were two different people. Two different Dolbys.
Well, another Dolby, but...
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Thomas Dolby did do the ringtone thing.
Thomas Dolby did the ringtones. I think it was Roger Dolby that did the sound design.
Yeah. Either way, Roger Dolby, I don't like you very much because Dolby Digital has just made films louder, but it hasn't made them better.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he's still alive because that thing's been out for like 40 years at this point.
Point is, I don't like it very much. Movies sounded better before Dolby Digital, in my opinion.
We're going to be haunted by the ghost of movie sounds past.
Hey, listen, I already get haunted by the ghost of my dead ancestors, so...
How appropriate given the film we just watched. So it's heartwarming, it's goofy, it's weird. If you want to watch it, you can find it on Tubi. Let's get into the spoilers at this point.
Time stamped at 50 minutes.
All right, so I don't want to go too much into the spoilers. I think this is a movie that just kind of has to be experienced.
Yeah.
Is there any spoiler moments in particular you guys really want to talk about?
I think my favorite line in the movie is when Shizue is like immediately falling in love with Richard, and you just see Yuzui in the background. Not Yurie. Yurie. Because Yuzui, no, that's not even her name. Yurie in the background just going like, Dad had an affair with a high school girl.
Yeah.
And then it was like, fine, then we can get married or whatever. And
yeah, he
like,
literally cheers when he gets his, yeah!
it just really... he tips his hand so often to what a piece of shit he is that it loops around to being hilarious.
Yeah, the only one who buys it at all is Shizue, and it's just so funny.
You get the impression that everyone's just like, you know, let's see how long it takes her, and we'll bail her out if we actually have to.
Like,
yeah, it's like having that one dumb relative or friend who's just like falls in love with everybody, and then you're just like, oh, honey, no. When shit hits the fan, which it always does.
Yeah.
Oh, and Richard's scheme getting revealed has one of my favorite meta jokes ever in a movie, which is, you know, the grandpa like knocks the guy out when he like comes to like when he like stumbles on them like and spies on them essentially, and after he knocks Richard out, opens up his Navy jacket, and it literally has the production
company,
the production company, the film studio Shochiko, like Shochiko costuming department. It literally is just the actual costuming department's tags, and I just found that hilarious.
And the funny thing is that I know a little bit about like naval history and some military history and that kind of thing. White is not worn at any point unless you're in like some military ball kind of situation.
Yeah, that's costume dress.
It's costume dress, yeah.
Yeah, that's like, yeah, it's costume dress. It's something you wear for show.
It's
or
something you wear
ceremonies.
for ceremonies and like a military ball, and that's really it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It wasn't an actual naval uniform, of course.
And
it's like a U.S. naval uniform, even though he says he's in the British.
Yeah, like just so many obvious holes in his story, and
he also says that he's like the illegitimate child of like Princess Margaret or something.
And he doesn't even know her name.
He mentions that Queen Elizabeth is his aunt or something at various points,
which implies that Princess Margaret is his mother.
Yeah, the way he just gets everything wrong, and it's amazing. I love transparent con man characters. Well, there's a reason one of the best Simpsons episodes of all time is the Conan O'Brien as the monorail guy episode.
Oh, that was Phil Hartman, but yeah, Conan O'Brien wrote that.
Yeah, he wrote that episode. And that episode's one of the best.
Marge versus the monorail is so great.
It's iconic. Well, looks like my work here is done. But you didn't do anything. Didn't I? Leonard Nimoy just playing a pastiche of himself in that episode is just the best part of it.
Oh, yeah, it is. And while we're on the subject of musical numbers, that one was just great.
Oh, it's iconic. It's a perfect encapsulation of like the Music Man style like musical numbers.
Great little homage.
Yeah.
It's like the Flim Flam Brothers theme from My Little Pony.
Exactly. And I just love all the genre mashups in this one. The rock inspired ones, the Golden Age Hollywood musicals, the Calypso kind of stuff. There's so much genre mashup. Miike clearly had fun with this. it seems like everyone probably had a lot of fun with this. And from the behind-the-scenes stuff, everything's done practically. That whole bit where they flash back to, like, the son's illegitimate dealings in the city.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
just running down the
cow.
Yeah, he's like running in like some like gritty industrial looking like area.
Warehouse or something.
Yeah, and they even showed they just did that on a soundstage where they set up like scaffolds and stuff. Basically everything is done either on location or in a stage, and it looks great.
And they also said in the movie how the son, how they kept accusing him of stealing the wallet, and he's like, I don't steal wallets anymore.
Yeah.
Which is like, that's what you got busted for?
It's one of the best boomerang jokes ever, too, where
Richard finds the lost wallet, and they get it off Richard, and he's like, see, I told you.
Told you. In, like, the most flat teenage way possible. It had him burying his head in his hands and me just howling with laughter.
And the dad just kind of just nods in acknowledgement, like, yeah.
It's great comedic timing across the board, too.
Absolutely.
Oh, for everyone.
I'm amazed how Kenji Sawada, who is mainly known for his rock group, the Tigers, just ties everything together and kills it.
Oh, absolutely.
You just feel for this guy's increasing exasperation over the fact that everyone just keeps coming here and dying, and he's just so sad and tired of it all.
Basically, it isn't the exact line, but it's like, why do they all die here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he even says something around that. It was like, why did they all have to die in the guest house or something like that?
And
you bastards, you know?
Yeah, like, and that bait and switch moment, now that we're in spoilers, I can elaborate a bit, with that family that walks up the way.
So depressed looking, asks for really strong chord, and you're just like, the kid's coughing, and you just fear for the worst.
For that kid in
they
particular.
Literally even say, should we just prepare for the inevitable? And they're like, yeah.
The deepest hole they ever dig in the movie.
Because they're prepared to, let's face it, they're prepared to bury an entire family.
Yeah. It's just funny because, like, it's a perfect build-up because all the other graves were one or two people, so they're shallow as shit. And then they get to this family, they're like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
And then we get the payoff.
They stumble across them. They're like, hey, what are you digging that hole for? Garbage. We're burying the garbage. Oh, yeah, you guys are hard workers. Thanks for the cord. And you see that was just used to tie someone's pants together.
Yeah, it was literally being used as, like, the
belt.
little boy's belt.
Yeah.
And then they just walk off, and the family looks out in the distance like assholes.
And the son and the great grandfather are just so just so out of it from this. And the son even just goes, "There's the cord," and the grandpa's just like, great grandpa's just like,
just dumbfounded.
They just are in disbelief. And the finale is those perfect, okay, we gotta end this thing. Let's just have some big crazy thing happen.
Some big climax.
A volcano erupts.
While there's a standoff between a guy who killed his wife and is holding the mother hostage.
It literally feels like how a Whitest Kid You Know sketch would end, where they don't know how to end the sketch.
So they throw everything at the wall.
Or Monty Python.
Yeah, and this big volcanic eruption happens. Everything switches to claymation. They pick up the house to save it from the flow, and it just ends up sliding down a hill at the family, and everyone's like, yay, we did it!
They, like, surf down with the house.
Yeah.
And I remember at the end, like, you see elephants and, like, a giraffe and some water buffalo, and you're like...
You're in Japan.
It's like, are you in Japan or the African savannah?
Yeah. And the one moment that's so hilarious, where they notice the dog is missing... And he's up on a branch holding for dear life as it's going down the mountain. And the dad's like, I'll save him.
Yeah. And then at the end, when they're like doing their big triumphant musical number, and all the cops and the suspect are buried up to their necks, just like moving their hands
Just
around,
flailing to the rhythm.
Yeah, just with smiles.
And my favorite is at the exact end where the little girl is doing the narration.
She's like, "Oh yeah, Grandpa died a year later."
Yeah.
It's like Walk Hard.
It's like, and great grandpa died a year later.
And you just see his spirit ascend to heaven, and they're just like, "Yay!" They're just like happy grandpas going to heaven. They're just like, "Yeah!"
When in reality,
He flew off like fucking Gamera.
It literally, I think this is what they were going for. It literally looks like the sequences in Ultraman where he's transforming into Ultraman.
And he flies off.
It's the same pose and everything.
You know, like the credit sequence of Ultraman and Gamera, where they fly off in the horizon and the song goes off and you see the big Japanese title card. Okay, there's an editing challenge for me. I'm gonna find a GIF.
The funniest bit one of the other funniest bits from the climax comes from when it looks like the son took the knife, and they're all like have this sad musical number about how proud they are of their son.
Of taking the knife for his
dad. And they're like,
and he got like a paper cut.
They're just like, "Oh, it's a scrape."
And they almost look kind of disappointed, like, what the fuck?
Like, we did all this for nothing. You got us all worked up for nothing.
Because they all thought he was dead, and then he was like, "Oh, it was just scratch."
Yeah, they're all just, "Oh, it's just literally like, oh yeah, it's just a minor wound."
So, I'm gonna try and find that GIF of the grandpa floating up and put up like a little animated title card of, Oji-san. Just like...
Yeah, no, it's a fun one. I think we're good to get out of spoilers unless we have any other spoiler stuff to talk
Not really.
Not really, we talked about just about everything.
No.
This is a surrealist musical masterpiece that I'm glad that you brought to the table for the podcast, buddy.
Yeah, so now that we're out of spoilers and everything, final thoughts. Richie, you said you really liked it. I still enjoyed it this time. It's an unsung gem in Miike's filmography. I'm glad that Arrow distributed this a few years ago. They did an excellent job with the upscale, the restoration, the uncompressed audio. It's just a fantastic little movie.
And I enjoyed it for the second time. It is fun, it's insane, it's weird, it's my kind of movie.
Yeah. All right, so we're about to close out Musical March with our next episode, which, Richie, you're going to be bringing us on home, so tell us a little.
All right. My episode of Musical March will be a late one, sadly, due to the end of March approaching not even a couple of days from now. But I've wanted to cover this movie for quite some time because it's got a lot of things that are very historically significant to many things. To musicals, to animation, to some of the most celebrated directors thereof, and to Warner Brothers being the biggest douchebags in the entertainment industry.
Oh boy.
Next episode, we will cover a movie that started out as the big introduction to an animation company and division that never was, but still ended up being historically significant for composers, for animators, and for lovers of the vaudeville musical in general. Ladies and gentlemen, join us outside of March for the last Musical March episode as we take a look at Turner Animation and Mark Dindal's Randy Newman scored tribute to the Golden Age musical, Cats Don't Dance.
Thank you, and join us next time.